I'd start with something. So, as it says there, quite early in my career, I worked for Richard at a startup called Virgin Energy, which was a joint venture between Virgin and Electricity, and we were in the gas, electricity, and home telephony markets. What's now Virgin Media grew out of that business. But that business was the most successful gas electricity company in the UK. We won about 400,000 customers at the time when utilities was interesting in the early 2000s. But then in February 2002, the Sunday Mirror put out an exclusive. Actually, I couldn't find the article, so this is actually hand-produced. But on February the 12th, 2002, the Sunday Mirror did an expose on the sales techniques of the door-to-door salesmen of Virgin Energy, who perhaps were kind of like quasi double-glazing salesmen. But basically, the Sunday Mirror did this double-page centre thing about how these salespeople have been ripping off customers, convincing them that if they signed up for gas and electricity with Virgin, they'd get money off their holidays and their CDs and whatever, which wasn't quite true. And so shortly thereafter, a very good-looking young chap was summoned initially on Radio 5. In fact, the story goes that I was on a train coming to London, and the PR officer had phoned me saying, you wanted on Radio 5, can you please do a call? So I jumped off a train, did this call, and I thought, well, what's it going to be about? I kind of guessed it was about mis-selling, and so the opening line from the journalist on Radio 5 was, so Mr. Carter, what do you think of the headlines in the Daily Telegraph today? I haven't seen the Daily Telegraph, so I had to kind of bluff my way through what I guessed it would say. And basically what it was saying was that our sales team had been slightly immoral, unethical, had not been a high performance. And so here was marketing coming to sweep up the mess that our colleagues in sales had done. But that's all I'm going to say in terms of my jibes about sales, or maybe until the Q&A, anyway, I'll come back to it. So if you kind of think, or as I do, that marketing has a longer horizon, and it's much more around the brands, all the things that we've just heard are not necessarily relevant, and you think that sales is more about demand, this is kind of how I see it, really. So this is a white T-shirt made in some sweatshop in the Far East, and the one on the left it sells for £3. The one on the right had a little bit of red paint on and sells for 20 quid. The reason for that, obviously, is because the one on the right, they've built a brand. Nike have built this great brand and allows them to charge that premium. So that is kind of is where marketing has played a role in terms of the brand. But in today's world, the customer is king. So we've heard a few passing comments about social media, and anyone who follows what I write, I'm not a big fan of social media, certainly not in the B2B world. But some examples here: Amazon in terms of customer reviews, Twitter, and hopefully you can't read that particular one in the back there, and TripAdvisor. All of them examples where the customer is basically informing the other customers about where to buy, where to sell from, and so very clearly a demand type of pull or push. So I was asked to talk a little bit about how sales and marketing works in Fujitsu. And I think, and I would say this, wouldn't I, that it works reasonably well. And partly because we've kind of got a model that works. And if you imagine that this model works from left to right here, in terms of you've got the manufacturing arm of our business, our offerings, our solutions, our services, our products, whatever you want to call it, are generated in the manufacturing part of the business. And at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the sales team, who are the people who actually get all the glory, go on all the fancy trips because they've met their targets, their quota this year. Then what joins those two together, the how, is really where marketing fits in. And again, I think we heard some of the things around what the sales guys are looking from marketing. The reputation of the business is something. So when I go into the boardroom, they know that it's not a bad company that they're doing business with. The credibility, so that when they go in the door, they follow up. The customer has actually heard of us and has heard of the product or services that we're selling. But this is why marketing matters. And again, we've kind of touched this a few times. But this is real research. So for all of our competitors out there, this is a bit of an insight into Fujitsu, some free research for you. But we know that 72% of people in this particular survey is aware of Fujitsu. Now, okay, 71% of them think we do cameras, but certainly 72% of people are aware of Fujitsu. So that's kind of okay. So salesman goes along, so 3 out of 4 customers have kind of heard of the people I'm knocking on the door of. Slightly averagely, really, we've then got familiarity. So do you actually know what it is that Fujitsu does? And kind of the half of them are saying, yeah, okay, I know what you do. Half of them saying, no, I've got absolutely no idea what you do. You probably do those Canva things. So kind of we've got a bit of a challenge here. So again, you look at that, that sales guy who's knocking on the door, half of those doors are not going to know who he is when he goes through that door. So then we look at consideration. So would you actually buy from Fujitsu in this situation? And what this particular research is saying is that, well, 1 out of 4 would buy, 3 out of 4 probably wouldn't. So again, as a salesman, are those odds he's willing to back? Is he willing to back an odd of 1 in 4? And then if you go to recommendation, would the customer recommend Fujitsu? Yeah, it would back up again around about 50-50. But the key question, of course, is selection. Would the customer select this gentleman here in his nice sharp suit and nicely coiffured hair? Look for a quick witty quote there, didn't come up. And the answer is maybe, maybe not. But certainly the point I'm trying to make is that marketing has an important role to play right the way through the spectrum to ensure the customer is aware of who we are, does know our reputation, does feel we're credible, would consider us when someone comes in the door, would be happy to recommend us, and then ultimately would make the choice to make the life easy for our colleague over here. That's what our role is for. And we've seen this, in fact, this number has come up 3 times. So we did compare notes beforehand, but I obviously wasn't listening. But this is the magic number that's been quoted 3 times today. And it's a piece of research done by the Sales Executive Council. And what it is saying is that today, 57% of occasions, the customer has already done their analysis and their research before they ever speak to a supplier in the IT market. Now, that is really, really scary, because long before this guy even gets out of bed, over half the time, the customer already knows whether or not you're going to be on his long list or his short list. This is why marketing is so critical to ensure that in that 57% of times, that customer knows about you, knows what you do, knows your credibility, and wants to speak to him, wants to follow up with him when it comes to making the buying decision. Unless marketing have done a good job, then you're out of the game. No matter how good he is, you're out of the game. And that's why we have got to work with these guys, and they've got to work with us, because together we have the best chance of success. Now, this is a little chart which basically is the Fujitsu marketing plan on the page. So again, competitors, get your pens out. This is it. On one slide, this is our strategy. Okay? Now, to make it slightly sort of non-confrontational, I've kind of lost the units and just made them in percentages. But if the answer, this guy's target, to allow him to buy his new kitchen, take his missus to Mallorca or wherever he goes, he's got to get to 100% of quota. And he'll get it primarily from three areas of the business. Now, the first lot, the known bids, he probably knows about today. So as he starts his sales plan at the start of the year, he knows that maybe, a third of his target will come from bids and opportunities he's already aware of, he's already working on. A third of it he already knows. Now, he may have a win rate of 1 in 3, 1 in 4, whatever it is, but he knows that he will get a third of his answer from known bids. What he probably also knows is that there are a lot of existing customers that we should be able to cross-sell to. There are lots of, certainly in the IT market, I'm sure in most markets in the B2B world, share of wallet is some way less of 100%. In fact, it's probably 10, 20% in many cases. So there's a real opportunity to cross-sell to existing customers. And if you can assume that you can get half of your target from cross-selling to existing customer, then that's dead easy. Because what that means is that really hard stuff, the cold calling, the demand generation, the white space, whatever you want to call it, is actually probably quite a low number. And actually, if you get that cross-selling up even higher, you may not have to do any cold calling, you may not do any of this demand generation stuff, any of this risky stuff. And of course, by understanding that, you know the type of marketing response that you need to do. Whether you're in terms of supporting bids, and you want to put your focus on there to increase that number, your account-based marketing for cross-selling, or the hard, scary demand generation, you know where to put your money because you know what the answer is. And if you get that right, then the year's easy. So, Fujitsu, very simply, this is our plan, fits that very simply. We have 4 objectives this year. 1, grow awareness. 2, support bids, 3, to do some cross-selling, and 4, do that demand generation. And those are the 4 things that we need to do to hit those numbers, to hit that 100%, to keep the salespeople happy, to make sure they have their summer holiday and their missus gets a new kitchen. That's what it's all about. Do these 4 things and do them really, really well. And in terms of the sort of things that you need to do, in terms of awareness, bit of PR, get your website sorted, sort out some social media, a little bit of advertising so that the credibility stands, and so when he knocks on the door, they know it is what you sell. But ultimately, it's just about making sure they know who you are, what you do. And certainly in my business, a bit like the Avaya example, most people do think we do cameras. Which is always a little bit disappointing, especially as you're the marketing director. Moving on. Then about win rates and about bid marketing. Bid marketing said that's probably about a third of the answer. So by really spending a lot of time understanding the markets, all bids start with good market insight. Again, we heard that from the sales guy. Really understanding your relationship with analysts and sourcing advisors, people who are recommending you, but also on the bids themselves, on the collateral, on the bid documentation. Ensuring that everything actually is well presented, it tells the right story, you're ticking all of the win messages. Get all of those things right, you've got a very good chance of getting those win rates up, 1 in 3, maybe if you're lucky 1 in 2. And then cross-selling. So for me, this is, from a Fujitsu perspective, this is where we're focusing our time, because this should be the easy stuff. We have these relationships with our customers, why can't we sell them something else? If you think of yourself as consumers, the number of times your bank or your grocery retailer, whatever, is trying to cross-sell to you, it is so much easier to put something else in the shopping basket. It should be the same in the B2B world as well. So for us, it's all about targeting. So again, you had the example about having the wrong type of collateral for the pharmaceutical sector. Well, clearly, with modern technology, modern forms of print, digital printing, etc., you should be able to customize your presentation, your collateral for your respective sectors as necessary, which all of that is doing. And then finally, in terms of demand generation, I said this is the hard stuff. This is the stuff I'd like not to do at all, because I really have no guarantees whether it will be successful. But you probably need to do a bit of this, certainly over a longer horizon. You need to do this, and certainly whether this is enabling the sales force through sales enablement activity, or it is through direct cold calling, emails, telephone calls, and God forbid that thing called paper direct mail, which actually works really, really well today. Because nobody else is doing it. Whatever it is, that will help you through your demand generation. So I just want to end really with just my pushback to our colleague. It's a two-way street. We need stuff from you in the same way that you need stuff from us. And I've kind of boiled it into 4 things really. Firstly, we need references. So the very first thing that a salesman will negotiate away, because he knows he's almost there, he's almost over the line, is he'll cross out that term in the contract that you've put in and say, you will do a press release. You will be a reference for a case. It's the first thing he crosses out, because he knows that if he gets the deal over the line, he's got his new kitchen, he's got his trip to Mallorca. Now, we have got to focus more on references. They are the absolute lifeblood, and this is a quote from Gartner, saying that CIOs will make a decision 25% faster if there is a reference involved. Secondly, engagement. Involve us earlier. Far too often, certainly in all the business I've worked in, engagement comes too late. The salespeople think they can do it all themselves, and suddenly they come against a brick wall and say, guys, please, can you help me? I'm going to the customer tomorrow. Please, can I have a wonderful presentation deck? Please, can I have some new collateral? And they've never heard of us, so please, can you do some advertising tomorrow before I go in, etc., etc. Thirdly, and again, you use the word to us, I use the word back to you, trust us. Sometimes, just maybe sometimes, very, very occasionally, we might know more about that sector than you do. We might understand that customer better than you do, and we might be a little bit better at communication than you are. So please, 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 trust that maybe we got to where we are because we do know what we're doing. For God's sake, please follow through. There is nothing worse than when we've created a whole load of leads. Again, I take your point about qualified leads, but the number of leads that we've generated, which are, we grade them, grade 8 and 9, which is kind of the highest grade you can get, and they're still there, unopened on the file. You can see it's unopened in terms of the way the files that we have designed, because, I don't really want to go to that part of the country. I don't fancy that sector. I'm far too busy. Please, if we've gone to the effort of creating a lead, it would be really, really helpful if you went after them. And that's all I was going to say. So thank you very much indeed.